Allgood here. I'm the founder of Quantum Performance, a high-performance coaching firm that specializes in the mental training of athletes, both youth and elite level alike. Today I want to talk about recovering from an injury and the psychological impact that it has on an athlete. Whether an athlete is out of their sport for a couple days, a week, to a few months to a year based off of an injury, the psychological impact and implications are far-reaching, and it definitely is something that athletes struggle with. Things that go through an athlete's mind when they get an injury is, will I be able to fully recover? What are the chances of me re-injuring it? Maybe worrying about losing out on college scholarships or sponsorships or prize money, depending on the sport that you are playing. So there's a number of factors that kind of impact the psychology of an athlete while they're dealing with an injury. And three of the main areas that really get impacted with an injury for an athlete is, one, a sense of identity. When an athlete has done a sport long enough and invested enough time and energy into something, that sport really is a big part of who they are. And so when it's taken away, there's kind of a loss of a sense of identity, even if that kind of taken away is for a short period of time. Then there's also the sense of self-esteem. And athletes are used to, when they're playing, usually getting a lot of positive feedback and reinforcement in return, right? They work hard, they do something, they kind of get rewarded for that. And so when that's kind of lost, it can definitely impact their self-esteem and their confidence in all aspects of their life, because their sport might be the area that really kind of boosts their confidence overall in all aspects for them. And then finally, the athlete has lost the method with which they cope and deal with stress. So this is definitely a big one, I think, because a lot of the ways that an athlete deals with stress from other parts of their life is through their sport. It is a way to kind of release it, to focus in, to let out maybe aggression or stress through their sport, and then all of a sudden that is taken away from them. And it's definitely very, very difficult, because not only now do they have another stressor, which is the injury, but they've lost that method that they usually use to deal with a stress point. Other things that definitely also impact an athlete when they're dealing with the injury is kind of what they're thinking other people maybe are thinking about them, worrying about what their coaches are thinking about them, or their teammates, maybe feeling like they're letting down their coach or their teammate, that maybe they need to get back sooner rather than later, because if they don't, maybe they'll lose the respect of their coach and teammates. Maybe they'll lose their position on the team. And so I've definitely noticed that with a lot of athletes, where they worry a lot about the other people involved in their sport and what they're maybe thinking, or the impact that their injury now has on them. You might be asking yourself, how, if you are dealing with an injury, how do you psychologically deal with it that's going to be beneficial for you? The first and most important thing is you need to allow yourself to be sad. You need to go through a bit of what we call the grieving process, to let those emotions out. I've worked with a lot of athletes, and it's definitely difficult because it's painful. It's painful to really look at and grieve and be sad for what could have been, for the season maybe you could have had, or the opportunity that you thought you might have had. And you need to be sad, especially if it's maybe a longer term injury. You need to really let that feeling and emotion to come to the forefront, and really to get it out. The second thing is to kind of deal with and really look at what is look at the reality of the situation. A lot of the time, and this hopefully was done in step one, is people will prolong and look too long on the what could have beens and the what ifs, and how something could have looked, rather than really just looking at the reality of the situation and moving forward from that point. The third thing is being positive. And now obviously, going along with the second thing, which is being realistic, you don't want to be overly positive and overly optimistic and not look at the reality of the situation. But the more positive your attitude is, the better the healing process is going to go. The next thing is taking an active part in your healing. So one of the things that athletes love are having a game plan, having a process, knowing what they need to do next to know that they're getting better. And so it's really important to make sure that you really are looking at and creating a schedule and setting goals very similar to the way that you would if you had not been injured, so that you feel like you're doing something, that you're actively, making progress with your healing. And so I already kind of mentioned it. The next one is obviously setting new goals. It's important to, now that something has happened, that maybe shift some of the goals that you had initially set for yourself to make new ones, so that you now again are on the right path and striving for what you need to. Another one is to be patient. You want to be patient with the process. It is a process. And the more patient you are, the better. It definitely can be difficult, very frustrating at times, but the more patient you are, the better, so that you can not get too worked up and really help that healing process. A lot of the times people don't get that. Obviously, psychological stress does impact your physical healing. Stress is stress to the body, and it does increase inflammation, which is obviously not the opposite of what you want to be occurring when you're wanting to recover from an injury. Final thing is, if really you need to seek out a counselor. Sometimes it's hard to deal with the injury on your own, to do all of the things that I just listed, to do that on your own. So if you really do need help, seek out someone like myself or someone else who is a professional who can help you kind of through this healing process, and really make sure that you can, when you are ready to get back to your sport, rebound faster and have a more seamless transition back into your sport. See you guys in the next video.